Good day, Grade 7. Welcome to our Science 7 Quarter 2 Module 1 lesson on magnifier, which is the microscope. I am Michelle P. Apresto, your teacher for today's lesson. May you enjoy and learn amidst this pandemic. Let's move to our topic, microscope. These are the objectives. Number 1. Identify microscope and its use. Number 2. Familiarize the history of microscope. Number 3. Determine the various types of microscope. Number 4. Describe the parts and functions of the microscope. And number 5. Appreciate its contribution to the pandemic. As we move on with our lesson, here you can see series of instruments or objects. Can you name them? Yes, we have the CCTV or the closed circuit television, and we have also convex mirror, the eyeglass, and of course, the microscope. I know that all of you are quite familiar as to its use, but what do they have in common? Yes, they have lens. In optics, this is a piece of transparent material, usually circular in shape with two polished surfaces, either or both of which is curved and may be either convex, it means bulging, or concave, it means depressed. A lens has the valuable property of forming images of objects situated in front of it. As we go with our lesson, we will encounter words or terms that to some, these are unfamiliar, but to others, may be easy. Number 1. Microscope. A tool or instrument used to see tiny objects and living organisms. Number 2. We have magnification. This is how much larger the object appears when viewed. Number 3. The resolving power or resolution. The capacity of the microscope to distinguish finer details of an image. Number 4. We have the cell. This is the basic unit of structure and function of all living things. So we have here an example of plant cell and animal cell. Moving on with our lesson, let us see if you have been stored some of the things you've learned from your previous grade level on microscope, who and how it started for our 15-item pretest. It comprises of two sets, A and B. For set A, read the statement and write the letter of your answer. 1. What tool is used to help you see tiny objects and living organisms? A. Goggles. B. Microscope. C. Stethoscope. 2. Who invented the first compound microscope? A. Isaac Newton. B. Robert Hooke. C. Hans and Zacharias Janssen. Number 3. What makes a microscope? Determine how clearly a small object can be viewed. A. Mirror and eyepiece. B. Mirror and magnification. C. Magnification and resolution. 4. What type of microscope which uses visible light to form an image? A. Optical microscope. B. Electron microscope. C. Scanning electron microscope or the SEM. Number 5. What is the science of investigating small objects and structures? A. Autopsy. B. Endoscopy. C. Microscopy. 6. A plant cell is viewed using a 10x or 10 times eyepiece and 43x or 43 times HPO or the high power resolution or objective. How much will the cells be magnified? A. 430 times. B. 43 times. C. 143 times. Number 7. How does a mirror help in studying the specimen in a microscope? A. It cleans the cover slip. B. It cleans the glass slide. C. It gives light to the specimen. Number 8. What type of microscope comprising a single lens? A. Compound microscope. B. Simple microscope. C. Electron microscope. 9. What is the basic structure and functions of all living things? A. Cell. B. Tissue. C. Organism. 10. What do we call the part of microscope to look through in order to view the sample? A. Eyepiece. B. Objectives. C. Mirror. For set B, match column A and column B. Write the letter only before its number. For column A, 1. It holds the slide in place. 2. It is used in carrying the microscope. 3. This supports the microscope. 4. It is connected with the eyepiece. 5. It holds the objectives. For column B, A. Arm. B. Base. C. Stage clip. D. Revolving nose piece. E. Body tube. Let's move to the first objective of our lesson. Identify microscope and its use. Microscope comes from the ancient Greek words micros meaning small and scopian means to look. This is a tool which can help you see tiny objects and living organisms. Microscopy. This is the science of investigating small objects and structures using such instrument. So, we have here an illustration of magnification, why we are using the microscope. It has the capacity to make things bigger or larger, just like the eye. At the same time, the portion of the insect that appears bigger, thanks to the GIF or the graphic image format. This is magnification. We have here another GIF illustration why we are using the microscope. It has the capacity to distinguish finer details of an object viewed, and this is called the resolution or the resolving power of the microscope. Just like when you want to buy a cell phone, you are choosing those ones that offers the best capture of pictures when you want to do selfie or group picture. Let's move to the history of the microscope. On the early 13th century, spectacle makers were producing lenses for glasses. The early sample microscopes were known as flea glasses because they were used to study small insects. A father-son duo, Zacharias and Hans Janssen, created the first microscope in the 1590s. In the year 1625, Galileo Galilei perfects the principle of microscope. In 1665, an English physicist, Robert Hooke, looked at a silver cork through a microscope lens and noticed some pores, or cells in it. Anton van Leeuwenhoek built a simple microscope in 1674 with only one lens to examine blood, yeast, insects, and many other tiny objects. In the year 1925, Richard Zsigmondy developed the ultramicroscope that could study objects beyond the wavelength of light and won a Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1925. Phase contrast microscope was invented by Fritz Zernike in 1932. Allows the study of colorless and transparent biological materials. little was done to improve the microscope until the middle of 19th century, when great strides were made and quality instruments like today's microscope emerged. So, we have an activity for you to do in which you are tasked to make a history of the microscope by filling in the table. The first item is done already, which in the year 1590, Zacharias and Hans Janssen developed the first microscope as their contribution. So let's get started. Congratulations! You can refer to this slide for your answer in our activity. The rest of the slides were the scientists and their contributions to the development of microscope, in which you could observe its different images. Here, you can see the father and son duo, Zacharias and Hans Janssen, with their first microscope, and below is Galileo Galilei, who perfected the principle of microscope. Hence, he developed a telescope, which he was able to look at the moon, discover the 4 satellites of Jupiter, observe a supernova, verify the phases of Venus, and discover sunspots. His discoveries proved the Copernican system, which states that the Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun. And we have here Robert Hooke, that discovered the basic structure and functions of all living things, which is the cell from a cord, because of his many access to microscope before in the Royal Society of England, followed by Anton van Leeuwenhoek, a largely self-taught man in science. He is commonly known as the father of microbiology. Microbiology studies the minute or small organism such as the bacteria and protozoa. And we have here further development of microscope by Sir Joseph Jackson Lister, who developed a method of combining lenses that greatly improve image resolution by eliminating certain chromatic and spherical aberrations to the compound microscope. And another one was Sir Richard Adolph Zsigmondy, whom credited with the concept of the ultramicroscope. Ultramicroscope is used to study colloidal-sized particles that are too small to be visible in an ordinary light microscope. Moving on, we have Sir Fritz Zernike, who developed the phase contrast microscope, on which phase contrast is used to enhance the contrast of light microscopy images of transparent and colorless specimens. It enables visualization of cells and cell components that would be difficult to see using an ordinary light microscope. Let's proceed with the types of microscope, one of which is the optical microscope that uses visible light to form an image. Under optical microscope is a compound microscope that uses 2 or more double convex lenses to magnify an object up to 1200x or 1200 times. We have also the stereomicroscope or dissecting microscope under optical microscope that magnifies image by 100 times and gives 3D or 3-dimensional image. And here, you can see the image created by the stereomicroscope, which magnifies image by 100 times and also a 3-dimensional image formed through this GIF. Let's move to the second type of microscope, which is the electron microscope that uses high-energy electron beams to form an image. Image can be magnified up to 2 million times, one of which is the transmission electron microscope or the TEM. Another type of electron microscope is the scanning electron microscope, or the SEM, which uses electron beam that bounces off from the surface of the sample. Let's move to the parts of the microscope, and here you could observe the different parts of a compound microscope: the eyepiece, the eyepiece tube, body tube, coarse focus or coarse adjustment knob, fine focus or fine adjustment knob. We have the revolving nosepiece, objective lens, arm, stage-to-stage clips, and under it is a diaphragm. And below is the illumination mirror and the base. And now, let's proceed to the function of its parts. Eyepiece or ocular lens. This is the part used to look through the microscope. Body tube or lens tube. This is connected with the eyepiece, and its main task is to hold it. The revolving nosepiece. It holds the objective lenses. We have the arm. It gives support to the head of the microscope, and it also used when carrying the microscope. The objective or the objective lenses. These are the major lenses used for specimen visualization. It magnifies the object to be observed to a certain size as indicated by the marks. Example, 3x for the scanner objective, followed by the low power objective or LPO with 10 times or 10x magnification, and the high power objective or HPO with 40 times or 40x magnification. In order for us to calculate the total magnification, just multiply the eyepiece mark by the mark of the objective used, thereby solve the total magnification of the object viewed. Let's move to the stage. This is the platform that holds the specimen or sample for viewing. Stage clips hold the specimen slides in place. We have the diaphragm. It controls the amount of light that passes through the specimen. Let's move to the coarse focus or the coarse adjustment knob. It focuses images under the scanner and the low power objectives. For the fine focus or the fine adjustment knob, it focuses images under the high power and oil immersion objectives. We have the light source. It provides light for the specimen. It could be a lamp or a mirror. For the base, it supports the microscope. Let's watch the video on the parts and functions of a microscope. Just click the word video. Thank you and credits to the owner of this video. As we discussed already the parts and functions of the microscope, the following slides will display the chopped part of the microscope. Therefore, let's do this. First, look at the chopped part of the microscope and name them on a piece of paper. And you did it! Let's move now to another slide, which shows picture of the coronavirus. Based on our learning with the microscope, what do you think is the microscope being used in studying the coronavirus or COVID-19? What would be your role in order to stop its spread? Now, let's try to test your understanding if you have learned something about our topic. In test 1, you can see the parts of microscope represented by the letters. Below are the names of its part. Just write the letter that corresponds to it. Proceed to our test 2. Read the statement and encircle the letter of the correct answer. 1. Who invented the first compound microscope? A. Isaac Newton. B. Robert Hooke. C. Hans and Zacharias Janssen. Number 2. How does a mirror help in studying the specimen in a microscope? A. It cleans the cover slip. B. It cleans the glass slide. C. It gives light to the specimen. Number 3. What do we call the part of microscope to look through in order to view the sample? A. Eyepiece. B. Objectives. C. Mirror. 4. What type of microscope which uses visible light to form an image? A. Optical microscope. B. Electron microscope. C. Scanning electron microscope or the SEM. 5. What makes a microscope determine how clearly a small object can be viewed? A. Mirror and eyepiece. B. Magnification and resolution. C. Mirror and magnification. This slide shows the answer for a pretest and our assessment. I do hope that you have learned something today on microscope. Let me use Thomas Edison quote that says, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." Thank you and God bless.